I don't know, man. When the US is so far right, we need more eyeballs in the injustice, and this guy just seems to be baking a purity test. I don't see any purity test happening here at all. Not in the slightest bit. Again, nobody has said anything about wanting to change Hassan or change the Democratic Socialists. He's talking about a difference in strategy. You can decide for yourself. You're an independent, grown person, right? You can decide for yourself whether you think the strategy of Democratic Socialists is the one you want to adopt, or whether his strategy of building coalitions within an independent party that people are unified behind an ideological idea is the strategy you want to adopt. The strategy of parties like the PSL, the FRSO, etc. That's not against building broader coalitions that connect with broader mass movements, but again, it's a difference between just doing that as an individual and supporting this or that Democratic Socialist candidate and doing it as a member of a Communist Party and following the Communist Party program. That's what I'm saying. It's not about like hating on one or tearing anybody down. It's if we can't talk about difference in ideological strategy, then we ain't gonna go anywhere. It's not purity testing. It's like actually trying to figure out the way forward, right? And if you think that just having a conversation about ideology like he's doing here is purity testing, then I think you're being a little bit ridiculous, if I may say. Like, it's okay to have ideological conversations and ideological disagreements, and then to let people decide for themselves which strategy they think is best and to rally around that strategy. Nothing wrong with that. Right? And I mean that's part of what I explained, like with this group that we're building on Twitch, is creators that understand that what we're trying to build is an independent party. And we're like, when we focus on electoral politics, it's mostly to understand that we use that in order to build our own movements. We do engage with all of those things. Claudia de la Cruz engages with electoralism, but in a way that Marxist-Leninists support. And that's what I support, and that's the type of politics that I'm trying to propagate as widely as possible. And if I don't highlight the difference between a Democratic Socialist and a Marxist-Leninist, then that difference will never be known. You know, that's a silly thing. They're like, oh, we can't talk about our differences because that's splitting the left or something. No, it's not. That's having a conversation.
He tried to separate the protesters from the people that have the tents. And he was saying the protesters that came out started to act rowdy, and that's why the police had to come out. But these are the people that support the people in power. When we're dealing with issues in the community...
I'm going to back it up again to when he's saying about Amy Good, when he's saying about democracy now.
But these are the people that support the people in power. When we're dealing with...
Right here.
Henley.
Yeah.
On WBAI, that's supposed to be the progressive station in our area. Yo, he went on Amy Goodman and said that he tried to separate the protesters from the people that have the tents. And he was saying the protesters that came out started to act rowdy, and that's why the police had to come out. But these are the people that support the people.
See, so don't focus on the fact that he said Amy Goodman or Democracy Now! Or whatever you think the progressive radio station in the US is. Focus on the fact that he's talking about how the most progressive radio stations, the NPR-aligned radio stations, even they can't go and give actual revolutionary dialectical materialist analysis. That's all, right? That's what he's saying, essentially. Elaney, welcome in. He's just pointing out that even the most progressive media that gets a wide distribution, like Amy Goodman, like Democracy Now!, it exists within the safe criticism of the system. In that, as long as it doesn't do a dialectical materialist analysis of things, then it will keep its As long as it doesn't cross certain lines, then it will keep its distribution. We do have to understand that. That's not about like tearing it down or whatever the hell. It's about understanding its role in society so that we can struggle accordingly. And like understand that there is a need to thus build independent media, which is why he's praising this media here. Just saying, like, for like praising this media here for being on the ground, showing different stuff that other people don't.
People in power. When we're dealing with issues in the community, we have no voice because they use their media outlets to protect these people.
Yeah, exactly, Elmira. Here's the thing, right? If we don't ever have ideological conversations, even ones that seem really difficult, how are we going to have unity? You can't have unity. And the funniest part is, if you actually go back and read like Stalin from a while ago, or read what happened with the London conference and the Bolsheviks, there was two halves of the conference. And in one half of the conference, near the beginning, they didn't talk a lot about ideological principles. And in the second half of the conference, they did. And the first half, where they didn't talk about ideological principles, there was constant squabbling, constant fighting, because like they weren't actually like putting out there where they ideologically stood so that they could understand what the differences were. And instead, they're just squabbling about this or that particular strategy that was right in front of them. Then when they got to the second half of the London conference, they actually did discuss ideological differences, and it was very ideological principles, and it was very easy to figure out, okay, these are the people standing with like the cadets. These are the people standing with the socialist revolutionaries. These are the people standing with the Mensheviks. These are the people standing with the Bolsheviks. That's why you have to have ideological conversations. It's not about dividing the left, right? Because again, Marxist-Leninists want to build broad coalitions, but it's understanding who we can unite with in like, we're both looking at the same future, the same strategy to get there, and who we fight with in broad coalitions, and hopefully win some people from that realm of politics over to our side in more and more numbers, so that we have more and more resources that we can pool together and use to serve people, use to reach the people. Because, like you say, America's very reactionary. Well, the best way that you can serve them is to serve their needs, where the government is not. And then the people come to trust you. And then they will want to hear your political program. And then they won't be so reactionary after some political education, right? This obviously takes time, but it's not just about electing in a more progressive candidate, because that's not actually moving there's no moving the Overton window, right? There's no such thing as that. Instead, what there is like the particular stage of consciousness that is determined by our material conditions. That's why we have to engage in active struggle, active organization, with an independent party, in the opinion of Marxist-Leninists. So you just say, we will work together, but remember, I am so-and-so and you were with... Well, it's like this. It's like this, version. It's like, if we're in a Marxist-Leninist party like PSL, right? You might go and work in the Peace Congress with other people. And while you're working in the Peace Congress, you will be giving your positions on things and your arguments on things from a Marxist-Leninist perspective. Or you might be working in a movement that's like, bring our boys home from Iraq or from Iran, because we don't want to see our boys bombed, right? That's not a Marxist-Leninist organization, but you as a Marxist-Leninist can organize in that group, can work in that group, and try and inject some Marxist-Leninist consciousness in it, or at the very least, move people closer to a revolutionary position as much as possible. That is the strategy of revolutionaries. And to do that guided by the Marxist-Leninist program of a party, whether it's PSL or FRSO or whatever. You're trying to bring as many links these progressive broad coalitions, you're trying to bring as many links as you can into the party and make the party the leader of those organizations. That's what you do. Yeah, hence my numerous comrades in PSL unit that work with Veterans for Peace, a very lived-up organization. Yes, absolutely. And that's why I'm saying people who say, like, we're purity testing, they're not understanding that we are working in the most lived-up, even in the most reactionary organizations, if it has a goal that can align with forwarding a revolutionary goal. Right? As long as it can bring that forward, even we could even dislike the people completely. But if they're a fair weather or a useful friend to have in a particular struggle against something that weakens a feature of capitalism and strengthens revolutionary organizations, then we will do that. We will work in those spaces, right? And that's what we have to, again, that's what we have to understand. It's not about purity testing. It's about having a political strategy that everybody is united behind, because when you get down behind a table and you strategize what to do next, you want to know that everybody around you has the same political line on, you know, the same principles on what needs to be done. You don't want to be sitting across from somebody and to start figuring something out with the strategy of how to distribute these goods, and you realize this person sitting across from you has completely different principles, right?